Welcome back to the third hour of our program. I have a treat for you here over the next 10 minutes. On the line with us is activist, Academy Award-winning actor, currently starring in Grace and Frankie over on Netflix with Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Sam Waterston, and the presenter of the new documentary film, The World Is My Country, the Garry Davis story, Martin Sheen, and Arthur Kanegis, who is the producer and director of The World Is My Country and the president of Future Wave, Inc., a nonprofit organization dedicated to shifting our culture of violence to a culture of peace. And guys, thanks so much for joining the program here. If I could start with you, Martin, tell us about Garry Davis and, well, what brought you into this project?
Well, Arthur Kanegis came to me with this documentary and asked me to narrate it about this guy, a fellow actor, back in the 40s, named Garry Davis. He was on Broadway understudying Kay. What's his name? The actor Danny Kaye. Yeah, and he was drafted. He ended up in, well, I shouldn't say he ended up, but he served in the Army Air Corps as a bombardier pilot in Europe, and he had a significant number of bombing missions, that he began to wonder about the people on the ground that were subject of his bombs. His last bombing raid was at Pandamunum, which was the Nazi base for developing the V-2 rocket, and they were hopefully developing an A-bomb before the war ended. So he came home, and in 1948, he started thinking about ways that he could prevent what was the world's leaders were leading to a third world war, with the arming of the Soviet Union and the United States, and not much communication between them about peace. So he decided to do it on his own. The UN was meeting in Paris in 1948. In that spring, and he went there and he managed to address them in a very dramatic way, which is caught on film, and that's in Arthur's documentary. So I'm going to leave it to him to take the story from there. So
Arthur Kanegis, tell us about Garry Davis, or the rest of the story.
Well, Garry Davis, of course, was so upset. He was proud to bomb Peenemünde and the war plant, but he was horrified that he also had to bomb cities full of civilians, and his own brother was killed. Why am I killing these people? Just because they're on the wrong side of an invisible line? And then he saw the Hiroshima footage. He said, what if I'm recalled to bomb Moscow in a war that would end humanity, end life on Earth? So what he did is that he startled post-war Europe using his skills as an actor to pull off this dramatic act of political theater right in the United Nations General Assembly. And this riveted war-weary Europe. 20,000 people rallied with him. Einstein joined him, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, all the top famous intellectuals, Simone de Beauvoir, and they ended up sparking a mighty movement and a huge 20,000 people at their velodrome, the Madison Square Garden of Paris, on December 9th, 1948. The next day, the Soviets, who had been adamantly blocking the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as an intolerable intrusion on their internal affairs, they stepped aside, obtained, and let that incredible document get passed unanimously, saying that every single person on Earth has rights and freedoms. And then Garry devoted his life to actually finding a way to create enforceable world law so that we could all appreciate and live by those freedoms, which, as Eleanor Roosevelt said, if we could all honor and appreciate those freedoms, we could eliminate the wars that are plaguing our planet and the climate change that is threatening to destroy us.
Yeah, I thought one of the most remarkable pieces of his story was, he started creating these citizens of the world passports, and there's all these undocumented people around the world, refugees mostly, who literally can't get into or out of countries because they don't have documentation, and people have been using these for decades. It's been working very, very well. Martin Sheen, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that the United Nations passed in the way that Arthur just told us about, so dramatically with help from Garry Davis. We don't quite match the rhetoric of that here in the United States right now. I mean, it calls, for example, healthcare as a human right. What are your thoughts on that and what we can do in that direction? Or what did Garry Davis think about that?
Well, he spent 10 years from 1948 to 1958, 59, traveling around the world. That's what his book covers in every episode, in every country that he crossed into. Most of the time he was arrested, and he spent time in jails, and some of the most infamous jails on the planet. The one country that stamped his world passport and allowed him to come in was India. And he got a meeting with Prime Minister Nehru, who gave him his blessing. That is an extraordinary episode in his book, where he covers all of his adventures going from one country to another, all the jails that he had to suffer through, and all the indignities. A man without a country who claimed the world as his country. And Arthur and I are very much involved with trying now to present his story as a limited series for television, and that's why Arthur's holding the book, My Country is the World, because he would have a confrontation with a border guard or a security officer or an immigration official, and he would stun them with the reality of his situation. They would throw him in jail, and while he's there, he would type up exactly what the scene was that he had just played through. So we're getting like almost as if he had a cell phone in those days. All he had was a typewriter, but he pretty much word for word remembers all of these incidents over almost a 10-year period of his confrontation about immigration. So here we are in 2021, a new century, and the same problem, that our borders are closed. But more importantly, it's our hearts that we have to open up. We have to pray that we are relieved from our hearts of stone and given hearts of flesh, because that's what he started with. He never lost his sense of humor. And the book is filled with, so many wonderful, sometimes very difficult situations, but he never lost his sense of humor, and people adored him.
Yeah. Martin Sheen, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to jump in to say he was never jailed for all the people that he murdered with his bombs. He was always jailed for not having papers, not having documentation, because he was a citizen of the world. That's why most of the time he was jailed before he created the world passport. Once he created it, he actually traveled frequently with it, and through history, almost every nation on Earth, the 193 nations in the UN, over 185 of them have at one time or another stamped these world passports. So it's not an easy travel document, but it's a tool for claiming your human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it is it's at least also a wonderful way to identify yourself with the world. And you can get it and the book and so on and our movie at theworldismycountry.com.
Which was the next thing I was going to say, that I kind of buried the lead. I should have mentioned that in the introduction to Martin Sheen and Arthur Kanegis. Theworldismycountry.com is the website. And Arthur, if you could just quickly summarize what this project is, about this documentary, this movie that's coming.
Okay. Well, this movie, which has been already playing on public television stations across the country, it tells this startling story, and it's a story really about discovering who we are as human beings. I mean, we think we're, Americans or Russians or this and that, and we think we're on all these different sides, red states, green states, blue states, purple states. But, what happens is that if we really get down to it, we are all human beings sharing one planet. And Garry really uplifts us with an incredible vision of the power that we the people have. He actually makes kind of a startling revelation, and that is, here we are begging and pleading our government leaders to please save us from climate change. He said, wait a minute. It says right there, yesterday was the official holiday for the Declaration of Independence. It says it is the right of the people to institute new government. And Garry says, well, hey, we're the people. Why don't we go ahead and institute government at the global level? A mind-boggling idea. But now with the Internet, he says, I mean, he was so excited about the Internet when it came along. He passed away in 2013. But he had this whole synergistic system of how we could, get together and invent something new. I mean, back in 1776, they invented something new, and Jefferson said there should be a revolution every 20 years. Well, we have a chance, the young people today, to invent a whole new way to create law at the global level that can help protect and defend us all, our rights, and the ability to keep our planet going.
There you go. Arthur Kanegis and Martin Sheen. The project is theworldismycountry.com. You can check it out. Guys, thanks so much for being with us today. Great talking to both of you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
Oh, we loved it. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you both. It's a great project and good stuff. Theworldismycountry.com.